Getting a health scare is bad enough at the best of times, but when it's linked to something that you really enjoy, like drinking too much and drinking too often, then it's really bad. So I'm going to be in conversation with Angus Grady, who is a specialist in LinkedIn, and he's going to talk us through his health scare and how he found out that alcohol was the real problem, and more important than that, how he came through the other side. But first, I'm going to ask Angus what it is that stresses him out on a day-to-day basis. So, Angus, tell me what stresses you out on a day-to-day basis.
I'm not great with technology, and I've always been a technophobe. I can use it, but once it goes wrong, Lord, does my day go east as I'm going west. And this morning, my Dell computer decided to have a fault. So I'm doing this off my iPad. Now, that may sound like I'm technical. I am not. And that really has stressed me today.
So we're only 9 o'clock in the morning and already starting your day stressed. Yeah, I have to say that's one of my big stresses as well. And for me, not only am I not terribly technical, but I've got such little time in which to solve a problem with technology that it can be very difficult. So how do you manage that if you do?
Well, I've actually been quite good today. I've done what I normally do, is I just walk away for a couple of minutes, and I kind of ask my higher power to help me. I just go, come on, I need you now. And so far they're obviously off having a coffee somewhere because they've not got back to me because it's still broken.
Oh, you know what? Or they might be thinking, no, this is really good. This will be great for the recording. Because it's kind of teaching people how to deal with stuff. And I didn't know you were into a higher power. So am I. And sometimes there is like a response, but sometimes I like to think, there's something deeper in this that is useful to me. What is it? And that can, when you're open to it, it can really be quite enlightening and helpful. So interesting that you're into that too.
Well, it's through the alcohol side of it. Through AA, they talk about a higher power, and I've never been religious as such, but I like the idea of a higher power.
Yeah. Okay, well, we're going to be talking about alcohol in a minute or two, but first of all, I want to understand more about that health scare that you went through.
Well, I'd been a social drinker for decades, and I hadn't been really. I was, sort of lying to myself. And, the whole thing about denial is not a river in Egypt. I was in total denial, and I just went out for lunch, and I ended up in hospital. My heart just decided to go on a bit of a walkabout through my chest. It was like river dance. And that was it. I was in hospital. But the thing is, though, I was very drunk when I was in hospital when I arrived, and I didn't really like what was being said to me. So and like my wife cried in a way that she'd never cried before. So I thought, oh, bummer. I better just listen and just shut up.
Like it's serious.
Yeah. It's a bit like living on like the San Andreas fault. You think, is that the big one? And then when the big one comes, you think, oh God, this is the big one. So that was a real slap bang wallop in the face.
So you said something real quick. So I just want to make sure that I've understood correctly. Did you say or mean that you were at lunch and then suddenly you had to be taken into hospital?
No, I just went out for lunch, and then I lost the afternoon, and I arrived back home. Somebody brought me home at about 8 o'clock at night, covered in rain and mud and blood and all that kind of stuff, because I had no idea where I'd been. Blackouts were becoming the norm. It's kind of like you are kind of walking around where English becomes your second language, and you're kind of being guided by some sat nav that is just completely not plugged in properly. Horrible.
Oh my goodness. So you were rushed into hospital, and you didn't like anything that was being said until your wife was clearly very upset, and then you started to take it seriously. So what was the diagnosis there, Angus?
Atrial fibrillation, and they said that if I went home that night, I'd probably have a stroke or more likely have a heart attack because my heart was going bad. Really, I mean, again, alcohol gives you an increased heart rate. When people come back from holiday, they always say, "Oh, my heart's going." They go to the doctor and they call it holiday heart. It's called holiday heart.
Yeah.
You know. So it's a common thing that doesn't get spoken about. No one goes in and buys a bottle of Beaujolais and says, "By the way, your heart will go mad after drinking this." They just go, "Taste the grapes."
I don't actually drink that much usually, but my heart can go quite fast if I have a drink. So arterial easy for you.
Atrial fibrillation, yeah.
Thank you. That's quite stressful saying that, isn't it? Is a really rapid heartbeat, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So at what point did you realize that actually the drinking and the heart condition were linked?
Well, I'd kind of suspected it for a while because, again, denial is a wonderful thing. And it's a coat many people wear. And I just kind of at that point, I knew I had a problem with alcohol, and it was, a lot of it stress related. A lot of it, the job I was in, I worked in ad agencies, and it was the law to go out at 12 o'clock and come back at 5 o'clock speaking Norwegian. End of story.
It is a very heavily social industry, isn't it?
It is, and well, I think it's calmed down in the 20 years that I've been out of it. But very, very stressful, and I just kind of knew, and that kind of was the bit. Being in hospital for a week on a drip, you're not there for an ingrowing toenail. It's kind of like big time.
Yeah, so it was a long-standing stay as well.
Oh yeah.
And so then you discovered the ugly truth that it was your drinking that was causing this problem. What did you do about it?
Well, I was lucky enough to be in hospital for a week, so they calmed my system down. You should never stop drinking straight away if you've been drinking a lot. And then I just started going back to more AA meetings, and it was quite incredible. I'd been going previously, but only to keep my wife happy. But you walk in when you're ready for it, and the room is different. The room looks bigger, smells different, it's brighter.
This is really interesting. So you were doing the AA before.
Yeah.
Spirit of denial and just appeasing your wife. So how did it feel going to AA under those conditions?
Well, I was kind of pretending to be going to AA. I'd go along, I'd listen, and I'd think, "God, you bunch of losers. What are you doing in here? Look at the state of you. Get a life. Go and have a drink." So, but when I went because I wanted to, and I think that's the thing, you have to want to get better.
Yeah.
It's like anything.
Yeah.
So,
they do say, don't they? You've got to hit rock bottom. Or, it's awful to have to wait till rock bottom, but sometimes that's what you need to get that wake up call.
Yeah.
And to get through. So before this, then, your wife was worried you weren't. What were the things that she was noticing, and maybe you were noticing as well when you were suspecting a problem? The alcohol, what effect was it having on you then?
Well, I was totally unreliable. I couldn't. Nobody could rely on me. My wife, my family. I wasn't earning any money. I was the managing director of my own company. And when people set their own companies up, it's a bit of, look at me, I'm the MD. So some days, as the MD and the finance director, the marketing director, all three of us would go out for lunch, and we'd come back and go, and it was ridiculous. I was playing a game of being. Running a company with one client who was so wonderful. I now work with the same person, but I do it for free. Free because they were there for me. They just used to shake their heads, and I used to think, well, they're shaking their heads in disbelief because I'm so good. No, because I was so bad.
That denial. Actually, you said denial is a wonderful thing. It's I'm not sure if it's a wonderful thing, but it's so powerful, isn't it?
Oh, it is.
It's like it's the truth. And so everybody else doesn't know what they're talking about, and you believe that what you're saying, that I haven't got a problem with alcohol, is the truth of it. But
it's like that whole thing about cognitive dissonance. We don't want to listen to a fact that changes our opinion.
Yes.
There was I thinking I was, I saw myself as some young Heathcliff with the wind blowing through my dark hair. That was the image I had of myself, not some portly, coming into middle age git who had a great future behind him.
Oh,
unless I was really careful and got myself together. And
yeah,
that jolt was the jolt that I needed,
yeah,
personally, physically, spiritually,
yeah,
emotionally, and also, just on a day-to-day level. Being able to admit that I'm an alcoholic was the
yeah,
first thing.
yeah,
Saying in a room of people that you don't know, "Hi, my name's Angus and I'm an alcoholic,"
yeah.
is wonderful.
So this is let's come back to the AA again. And so there's pre-admission, and by that I mean admission to it being a problem, but also admission to hospital, and then post, where you thought, no, I really do need this. So tell me about the experience after that. So you mentioned it just felt more open, it smelt differently. What else did you notice about the experience of AA once you were brought into it?
I was listening. I was listening properly. And by listening, I then got to learn. And once I learned, and I started to accept the fact that, I'm not an island. I can't do this on my own. Very few people get to the top of Everest on their own. They have their Sherpa tensing, they have their help, they have their support. And AA talks about higher power, and some people say, "No, I don't want to go to AA, it's so religious." It's not. There is a higher power. You've just got to look around you to know that. The universe is a power. There, you've got to, and we attract our vibrational match. And I think that sounds a bit woo-woo, but it's absolutely spot on, I think.
Yeah.
And my kind of higher power kind of lets me get in, kind of puts me in touch with that.
Yeah.
And it's just, and listening and also talking to other people that have been there before me, and people I didn't even, and I normally cry at this stage, I'm going to stop. People I didn't know loved me back to life. And that
Oh,
was massive. That is still massive in my life. 17 years later, I help wherever I can. So if I'm still contacted with AA, so I'm on the helpline, I'm on the phone book. So if somebody wants help, I am on a duty bound to give it, because you have to give it away to keep it.
yeah. You're making me fill up as well. Do we have a little bit of a moment?
No, all right. But
it's wonderful.
it's
I
still
love
powerful.
it's
still
very
powerful.
And I love the phrase that you have, people loving me back to life, because what you're saying, your wife is Sharon, yes?
Yeah.
So Sharon stuck with you through those difficult times, and then she was crying at your bedside at the hospital, and she must have, because you've just had your anniversary, haven't you?
Yeah.
She must have stuck with you following that, which would have been very different for her as well.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to be married to somebody who's going through this, but she was one of those that loved you back to life.
She was, yeah. I mean, she is an amazing woman. She actually thinks I'm somebody else, so I'm not telling her that I'm not. So if like she says Gary, I say, yeah, hi, how can I help? No, I am blessed. I am blessed. I have friends who were just unbelievable. One guy, really important guy, he's a very busy man. He dropped everything to come and help me, and that is the power.
Yeah.
And I think that we forget that, and there's there's a great TED talk, and it says that the opposite of addiction is not sobriety, it's connection.
Yeah.
And it really is. And that is Johann Hari, is that, if you want to look it up. It's just brilliant, because it's absolutely true. It's not sobriety. We need human connection.
Yeah.
And that's something that...
Yeah, so as we're recording this, we are still experiencing COVID, although we're not in lockdown. And so we're kind of 18 months in, I think, aren't we? And what I have noticed in my clients is, this kind of feeling of disconnection has been catastrophic. So I think we are experiencing another, what's the word? Epidemic. Which is that. So, the importance of staying connected to people that are important. And when I say important, I mean people that you care about and that care about you, and investing in those relationships is important as well. So Angus, what are the other learnings from AA that you can share with people? Because there's the higher power principle, and there's another one that's very powerful, isn't there, and that people struggle with, but is one of the key parts of the process. You have to guess what's in my head now. good luck with that.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's so many. I mean, there are so many things. I think the basics for me is that, helping other people is fundamental and paramount. And listening is paramount. And I work my 12 steps kind of regularly. I'm not obsessed by it, but I've got certain things that I must do every day. At the end of the day, I do what's called like a step 10. So I look at my day and think, who did I really piss off today? Who did, and we all do it inadvertently.
I'm sure I've never done that with anybody ever.
I'm sure. No, you're far too nice. But
I have.
Yeah, but we do, and I kind of do a little review of my day. Not spend hours on it, but it's something I do because I've got to be thinking, right, how could I have made today better without making long lists and doing everything else. But when you've done something that you're not proud of, and I go back and I make amends. I try and make amends. So I'll actually phone somebody and say, look, I'm really sorry about yesterday, but my Dell went down the Swanee and I was really annoyed and I was a bit sharp with you. I don't do it over small things, but if I think I've really upset somebody, then I do go back and I do say,
Yeah.
I think for me, that's important.
A lot of strength to do that, and a lot of humility as well. I think it's the mark of somebody with integrity to apologize. But what you're saying there as well is when you're being kind to somebody else, when you're thinking about what somebody else needs, it makes the world not just about you. And also it increases the oxytocin, which is a really important hormone that makes you feel good. So when you're kind to somebody else, it gives something good to you and it gives something good to them. So it's really, it has it's a virtuous circle, if you like.
I think so. Yeah. And I think people are afraid, there's so much rubbish talking about authenticity at the moment, because it's the big thing. But I think that if you say that you're authentic or try too hard to tell so many people that you're authentic, you're not being authentic.
Yeah, because he doth profess too much, is the phrase.
Yeah.
Trying to convince people. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
and I carry a coin from AA, which has got the sort of how many years I've been sober. So every year I get a new coin, and on there it says, to thine own self be true. Beautiful. And I look at that. I look at the steps. I have a Just for Today card, which is through AA, and it just grounds me. And if I think I'm going off on one, I just grab my coin, look at it, and think, you know what? I'm going off on one. Rein yourself in.
Yeah. So it's creating self-awareness as well, then, isn't it? Self-awareness,
absolutely.
Management of self as well.
Yeah. I think that
in my mind was taking an inventory. I love that one. Looking at if you could explain taking an inventory.
Well, basically, we've got to admit to ourselves and to one other human being all of our faults, and we do a list of what those faults, and then from there we actually go and make amends to the people who we've hurt, upset, let down based on that inventory. So it really is brutal. And my sponsor within AA said to me, he said that was a bit lackluster, wasn't it? I said, what do you mean? He said, well, that's not, he said, those aren't your faults. You know that they're not your faults. And he wasn't doing it to make, because he was the sponsor. He did it because he knew. I said, well, I get a bit short, a bit angry. He said, no, come on, that's superficial. What is it about you that are your faults that let you down, that allowed you to pick up alcohol to be the medicine to solve the problem that you had? So your problems are your faults. So what problems do you have? Why do you do it? And I had to dig deep and actually realize that I was an overambitious underachiever. Basically, but why I drank, because I had issues with confidence and who I am and all that kind of stuff. And you never sort any of your problems out, but if you know what they are, then you can fix them and you can look at them and you can get it all. You can get it all sorted out. And 17 years later, I'm still a work in progress, and I always will be. But I love the fact that I'm better at some things now than I was 17 years ago.
Yeah. So the problem has been for 17 years Oh, you've been sober for 17 years.
I've been sober for 17
Yeah,
years.
that's
Yeah.
quite a lot. So would you say, Angus, that you still sometimes want to drink?
Yeah, of course. It's like that Pink Panther Kato moment when Kato jumps out of the wardrobe. Not now, Kato. And you suddenly think, and those instances are fewer and less. I don't get them as often. But again, because my Kato knows that he's got to be really strong when he jumps out and catch me at the wrong moment. It's always at the wrong moment. I mean, I lost my mum, I lost my dad. And, when I lost my mum in 2016, that was the time that I so wanted to drink. And I said to Sharon, I said, you know what, this is the only time that I can think where that pressure, that scratching instinct for an itch that I can't scratch is actually really strong. And I worked my way around it.
So when you get that itch that you can't scratch, Angus, what are the things that you do now instead? So your first reaction is, I need to drink. Then you acknowledge that that's not now. What do you then do instead? Or is the not now message enough for you?
I try and get, this is going to sound silly, I try and get breathless. So my sponsor gave me the Alcoholics Big Book, which is the AA Big Book, and he gave me a skipping rope. And he said, whenever you want to drink, look at your book, have a skip and phone somebody. So I try and get breathless. And somebody taught me, I probably don't do it right, but it's like a yoga technique where you kind of breathe in and you breathe out quickly, like you're frosting a glass, like you're trying to clean a glass. And you do that for a couple of minutes. And boy, does that get rid of it. And you just center yourself.
Yeah, so it's centering, but also I'm thinking it's intriguing about the skipping. I'm wondering if that's discharging the energy.
Yeah. And I think once you get breathless, your whole thinking changes because you're breathless and you get the endorphins suddenly flying through you and the other morphins and whatever. But and it just works. It just works. I mean, I don't suddenly skip in my kitchen, but I have been known to walk out of meetings because that do I sit here and suffer or do I just say sorry, I'll explain this later? And that's very rare, but there was one occasion when I had to do it because they were all talking about going out for drinks and having fun, and they were and I said, I can't be doing with you all talking about your hangovers and where you're going to drink to get another hangover. And it just kept going. And I said, I've got to leave this room.
So the being honest in those situations and speaking out.
Totally honest. I cannot not be honest about it. And if somebody asks, we went to a UEA, which is university reunion. So for the people who I was there in 1976, and over the last 5 years, there's about 7 or 8 of us that have got together every 6 months. And one of my friends brought along last weekend alcohol-free beer that tastes like beer, and I said, I can't drink it, Ralph. I cannot drink it. Because I said the association, if I think that it's okay to drink this beer, I'm going to think it's okay to drink a proper beer.
Yeah.
So I won't go I don't have anything alcohol free.
Yeah.
So, no
pretense.
No pretense. I just cannot drink alcohol.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know what would happen if I had to drink. Probably nothing. I'm not going to turn green and rip my clothes. But the point is that I will be on what I call my Cresta run. Yeah. And for me, once I started drinking, it was like being strapped to a toboggan, upside down, blindfolded, and pushed down the Cresta run. You just don't know what's going to happen, and I don't want to be. And I like the fact that I don't have the instance where English becomes my second language.
You're super eloquent, aren't you? So when you have a drink, that goes right out the window.
Oh, I don't know. I'm not even going to do the research. As far as I'm concerned, it's finito bonito.
Finito bonito. Thanks so much, Angus. That has been fantastic.
Pleasure.
Been honest and open, and I really, really appreciate that. I'm sure lots of people will get benefit from that. And I always ask people if there's a book that they've read that they've found really helpful or inspiring in their lives. And you've got one in particular, haven't you?
I have, and it's probably not the one that people would expect. But Anam Cara is like your spiritual friend. And this book by John O'Donoghue is just wonderful. And I've had it, I think, for probably 10, 11 years. And I dip in and out of it, and it's quite wonderful. It's about the Celtic traditions. My parents are Welsh. I've got a Scottish surname. First name and Scottish surname, what is an Irish surname, and it's just wonderful because it really does make you kind of stand back and think, wow, there is more to this than meets the eye, without being woo-woo about it all.
Yeah, because people think spiritualism is woo-woo, but it isn't, is it? It's just kind of...
It's not. And I think for me, I've got to realize that, sort of addiction was giving up everything for one thing, and sobriety and getting better for me is just giving up, or rather, I gave up everything for one thing, and sobriety is giving up, is actually giving up one thing for everything. It's just wonderful.
What a line that is. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I probably got it wrong. Yours? No, I think I borrowed it from somewhere. I can't remember, but it's something that's always in my head.
I love that.
And the wonderful thing for me about sobriety is that, I'm only 17 years old. Because, I'm a 17-year-old, 64-year-old. It's wonderful. And, the whole thing we say in AA is the great thing about being sober is that you get your feelings and emotions back, and the worst thing is that you get your feelings and emotions back, because I had no idea.
It is interesting. People think that feelings are bad, or bad feelings are bad. Actually, they're there for a reason, aren't they? They're there because they're saying, this is happening, this is something you need to do something about. And the answer is never alcohol, nor is it comfort eating, nor is it gambling, or any of those things. It needs your direct attention.
They're signs, they're signals, they're little lights that are saying you need to look at this.
Exactly. So just a really, really quick question on the book, which I've never heard of. You don't have to be Celtic to enjoy and benefit, I am presuming.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Read it then. I do like those
wonderful.
Kinds of books. Yeah.
It's wonderful.
Excellent.
And it's kind of like you feel as if you've been on holiday. You feel as if, I honestly look around the room because I keep thinking that there are some Celts in the room with me when I read it. I feel like, druids and whatever. I just feel a real draw to it. It's lovely. It's wonderful.
Actually, I've forgotten. I do have a bit of Celts in me, but it's kind of a bit far back. So I've got good reason.
There you go.
Go and find good reason.
Go and find your Celtishness.
Thank you so much. Angus, thank you ever so much for your wisdom today, your insights, your honesty, your humility, and your humour as well. I hope all of you have enjoyed this as much as I have. If you have, please do like and share. If you've got any comments about how you've dealt with your challenges, that would be super helpful too. You take care now.